In today's video, we are going to be discussing Batman Arkham characters, or I should say villains, that deserved more. Now, what I mean by that is I'm talking about the story of these villains. So this isn't relating to things like boss fights or character designs or anything like that. This is solely based on sort of how they were represented in the story. And obviously these characters here, I think weren't done particularly well. And I will discuss in some ways how I think they could be incorporated better into the story, or if I can't think of any reason better, I will just explain why I think they didn't work the best. And all these characters I think could have done really well in a game, like as like a bigger threat to Batman, and that can be said for the first one very, very much, and that's actually going to be Killer Croc. Now the reason he is the first one is because I can't see him being the main villain of a Batman game, because yes, he is definitely a threat to Batman, but I don't think that he could hold, the story of a game on his shoulders, because as I said, he's a big threat to Batman. Batman is prey for him, and I think that's a very cool story to have between those two characters, and it gives them a good little dynamic there, but I don't think that's enough to carry a game. And as I said, that's why I have him last out of the rest that I've picked, because I like his character, and he is in all of the games, even though it's really brief in City, but he is in that game still. He's in all the games, so I find it strange that he didn't get more of a story presence in the series, because he does have, as I did say, this doesn't really play a factor, and it doesn't, but he's always had a pretty cool design. He's always had a really cool, his boss fight in Asylum was insane. It was very, very creepy, and I think for a character with such potential, it was sort of wasted, and they absolutely could have done him worse. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that they could have done him a little bit better, and I would have loved to see him, play a bigger role in a game like Arkham Knight or something like that. Alright, so next I have Scarecrow. Now the reason I didn't put him as my number one is because he is technically kind of the main villain in Arkham Knight. So the other characters I have, they weren't the main character ever. They were just sort of side villains, whereas he had a good amount of time on screen in Asylum, but in Knight he has a lot of screen time still, but he sort of seems stupid because a lot of his plans are literally foiled by Batman pretty quickly into the game. However, he gets away because of the Joker hallucinations, which makes him look pretty incapable, I feel. Also, at the start of the game, it's sort of set up like he might be the main villain, but it's actually not. It's the Arkham Knight, which I guess makes sense because that's the title of the game, so you sort of know that going in, but I feel like it doesn't really feel like they're working together towards the end of the game. It just feels like it is the Arkham Knight that's the main villain, and then Scarecrow's just sort of off to the side, not very important, which sucks because he's probably my favorite character in the series, so seeing that happen really, really sucks. And although I will say the ending of Arkham Knight was really, really fucking cool, I loved that ending, and it is mainly due to Scarecrow, but the fact that happened in Knight it doesn't ruin his character at all. He wasn't really in the other games aside from Knight and Asylum, and in Asylum I thought he was great, and I know a lot of you watching this probably agree with me there. And yeah, it's just very, very unfortunate to see that happen. So if you guys agree with me there, that's awesome. If you don't, I completely understand. Just my opinion that even though they did do him pretty well in the games he was in, I feel like maybe he could have played a bigger role in Arkham Knight, and maybe even appeared in one or two other games in the series. Now, as the number one character that I think deserved more in the Arkham series, I have Mr. Freeze. Now, I know he isn't actually a villain, technically speaking, so you might be wondering, how could he be the main villain of a game? And I understand that, and I actually think that having a villain that isn't really a villain is actually an interesting way to take the story, because the villains are always evil. Like, even at the end of Arkham Knight, where we see Jason turn, like I wouldn't say he's a good guy, but like he helps out Batman at the end against Scarecrow. He turns good, but he's still not like a good guy, right? And with all the other games, you know, Joker, he's a villain, obviously. You know, Bane, like, I know Bane's not really the final boss in Origins. He kind of is, but still, all those characters are villains, right? Freeze can be a villain, but that's not really how they choose to write him. They usually choose to write him as someone who's just trying to save his wife, you know, protect Nora. And I think that's a really, really sweet story to have for a villain. Now, I'm saying villain with air quotes because he's not one. He's not your typical bad guy, and I think that is a really, really cool idea to follow, because in the games he's in, which is actually all of them except for Asylum, he is only really in one, because in Origins and Night he's DLC, like the things he's in. He's only in City as a base appearance in the story, and it's amazing. Everyone loves that. Everyone loves that boss fight. It's most people's favorite. And the story, not just to do with the boss fight, but the story that Mr. Freeze has in that game is amazing. It's great. So I'm really surprised that they haven't, you know, brought him back as like a base story character so that we can, you know, see more of his character, because in Arkham Knight, his ending is really sweet. Like, it's really nice. And I think if there was a game, like because it sounds like they might be continuing the Arkham games after Suicide Squad. So if they did go back to that, even if it isn't Bruce as Batman, I think that it'd be a really, really nice angle to take the games. If Mr. Freeze was the main villain, you could have someone else, maybe Mr. Freeze could be the main villain and give him a ton of story and a bunch of character development, help him through the stuff with Nora. Maybe she gets saved, maybe she doesn't. I know that she did at the end of Night, but obviously we don't know what story changes would be made. And have him maybe, you know, get Nora back and become a good guy. Maybe he can help out Batman against a bigger threat like Scarecrow, or, you know, another big villain that maybe I didn't mention today. So hopefully you guys can sort of see where I'm coming from when I say all that. I hope this sort of gave you some insight into, I guess, maybe some characters you didn't think about before were maybe a little underdeveloped. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Batman Arkham videos. My next video should be a playthrough of Arkham Asylum. It'll just be part 1 though, so I'm not going to do the full video because that would, you know, make me want to die. So I'm going to do it all in parts, probably around 20 minutes each. I hope to see you there. That should be in a few days. And yeah, thanks everyone.